I'm Alex, 26 years old, and for the last few years I've tried to build myself into a woman who depends on no one. I run a department in my company with quiet pride, and I've always told myself that discipline and independence are my strongest shields. People at work often say I carry myself with a kind of distance, as if I've built invisible walls around me, and maybe they're right. I never wanted anyone to step too close, especially in matters of love. My boss, a woman of 40, elegant and composed, had tried more than once to step across those walls. She had proposed to me, directly and indirectly, with a persistence that both unsettled and frustrated me. Each time I turned her away. I told myself it wasn't just because she was my superior, it was because I hated the very idea of being with another woman. The thought seemed unnatural to me, a betrayal of how I thought life and love were supposed to work. My rejections became sharper each time, laced with my own fears and prejudices. I wanted her to understand there was no chance, not in this life. At the time I was secure in my own relationship. My boyfriend was the center of my world. I trusted him the way a child trusts the ground beneath her feet. We talked about our future in hushed tones at night, about marriage, about building a life where we would hold hands through every storm. He promised me forever, and I believed him with the kind of innocence that only comes when you've never been broken. But forever shattered sooner than I could imagine. I still remember the way the truth came to me, not as a sudden thunderclap, but as a quiet storm gathering in the corner of my life. Messages I wasn't meant to see. Laughter that wasn't for me. A warmth in his eyes that dimmed whenever he looked at me, only to ignite again when another name was spoken. When I confronted him, the silence between us was louder than any confession. He didn't even deny it. He simply shrugged, as though my love had been nothing more than a temporary shelter, a place he could walk out of when something brighter appeared. I thought my heart would stop beating that night. I sat on the floor of my apartment, tears soaking into the carpet, feeling as though every promise had turned to dust in my hands. The man I had built my dreams around had walked away without looking back, and in his absence, I felt stripped bare, humiliated, and abandoned. For days, I couldn't bring myself to speak to anyone. I stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping, stared at my phone as though it might undo what had happened if I willed it hard enough. The betrayal cut deeper than I could explain. It wasn't just that he loved someone else, it was that he had proven me wrong about everything I thought I knew about loyalty. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I couldn't hate only him. Slowly, I began to hate men altogether, their careless promises, their easy lies. And yet, I didn't turn toward women either. I hovered in a cold, neutral place, unwilling to let myself feel desire in any direction. I told myself I was done. Done with love, done with expectations, done with believing anyone's words. But deep inside, the loneliness began to echo louder than I wanted to admit. The walls I had built were still standing, stronger than ever, but within them, I found myself pacing in circles, haunted by memories of what I had lost and terrified of opening the gates again. The days that followed my heartbreak blurred into one another, but one face kept appearing through the haze, hers. My boss. The same woman I had rejected again and again. She didn't push me anymore, not openly, but she lingered in small, almost invisible ways. She would pause outside my office just to ask if I'd eaten lunch. She would notice the dark circles under my eyes and tell me to go home early. When my hands trembled as I signed a report one evening, she quietly slid a cup of tea across my desk and said nothing, just waited until I lifted it. Her kindness wasn't loud, but it was persistent. It pressed against me softly, like water seeping into the cracks of a broken wall. And though I tried to resist, there were nights when I lay awake thinking of her voice. Calm, steady, unlike the chaos that had torn through me. One evening, the office was nearly empty, the city lights glowing through the tall windows. I was finishing some paperwork when I realized she was standing at the doorway, watching me. I looked up, startled, and she smiled faintly before stepping inside. "You work too hard," she said, closing the door behind her. "I need to," I murmured, my eyes back on the papers, though my heart suddenly beat faster. She came closer, her presence filling the room. "Alex, may I ask you something?" I nodded without looking up, afraid of what I already sensed was coming. Her voice was low, steady, stripped of the playful tone she had used in the past. "Will you give me one chance? Just one. To show you that not everyone leaves, not everyone betrays." The words hung between us, heavier than any contract I had ever signed. I lifted my gaze and found her eyes fixed on mine, gentle but filled with something that shook me. I wanted to laugh, to remind her of how many times I had said no. But my throat tightened. I remembered the nights I had cried alone, the hollow ache of betrayal. And then a thought slipped into me, uninvited. Maybe she is different. Maybe she is loyal. I swallowed hard. "Why do you keep asking me?" "Because I don't give up on things I believe in," she whispered. For a moment, silence enveloped us. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner, the faint honking from the street below. My heart raced painfully, and I hated how weak I felt. Yet, when I finally nodded, it was almost against my own will. "One chance," I said quietly. Her breath caught, and before I could pull away, she reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm, steady against mine, and something inside me cracked open. She leaned forward hesitantly, as though afraid I'd flinch. And then her lips brushed mine, soft, fleeting, trembling. Froze. My body went rigid, my mind screaming at me to step back. But instead, my eyes fluttered shut, and I let myself feel it. Just for a heartbeat. The kiss wasn't hungry or demanding. It was gentle, like a question waiting for an answer. When she pulled back, I could still feel the warmth lingering on my lips. I touched them unconsciously, confused at the strange comfort that had sparked in my chest. "I shouldn't have," she began, but her voice faltered. "No," I said almost too quickly. My voice was shaky, my heart pounding. It's okay." The truth was, it terrified me. Not just the kiss, but the fact that part of me had wanted it. That part of me had found relief in being wanted again, in being held so carefully instead of broken apart. I hated myself for enjoying it, for the way my chest loosened when she smiled softly, for the way my loneliness quieted in her presence. I turned my face away, afraid of her reading too much in my expression. What would people think if they knew? What would my family say? Even the shadow of those questions made my stomach tighten. And yet, for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. She didn't push further that night. She just squeezed my hand gently before letting go. "We'll go at your pace," she whispered. As she walked away, I sat frozen at my desk, my thoughts a storm of fear and longing. My lips still tingled, my heart still raced, and all I could think was that something had shifted again. Something I could no longer ignore. The days that followed that fragile kiss felt like stepping into uncharted territory. We didn't announce anything, not even to ourselves, but there was a quiet understanding between us. In the office, where glass walls and sharp glances defined every move, we wove a secret thread of closeness, something just for us. It began with lunches that no one else noticed. She would send me a message, short and discreet, and I'd find her waiting in a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the company building. At first, I went with hesitation, telling myself it was just a meal, but the way she leaned forward to listen when I spoke, the way she brushed a crumb from my lips with her thumb, made those lunches glow with something far more intimate. We never said the word relationship, but the silence between us carried it. In the office, her touches were fleeting, almost invisible to others. A hand resting briefly on my shoulder as she looked at a file. Fingers brushing against mine when she handed me a pen. Sometimes, when the corridors were empty, she would lean down and press the faintest kiss against my temple, leaving me both flushed and flustered. I told myself I should resist, but instead I found myself waiting for those moments, craving them like air. Slowly, my defenses began to crumble. I had once thought that loving another woman would feel strange, unnatural, but instead it felt safe. Her presence didn't demand, it soothed. Her laughter filled the hollow spaces inside me that I hadn't realized were still bleeding. She remembered details no one else had ever bothered with. My favorite coffee blend, the way I chewed on the edge of my pen when stressed, the songs I played on repeat when I worked late. One evening I was overwhelmed with deadlines, my head heavy with exhaustion. She appeared at my desk without a word, set down a steaming cup of my favorite latte, and gently tugged the pen from my fingers. "You need a break," she said softly. I wanted to argue, but instead, I looked at her and felt the sting of tears I didn't even understand. She didn't ask questions. She just stayed with me until the knot in my chest loosened. That night, as we sat together in the quiet office, our hands brushed on the table. Neither of us pulled away. The hum of computers and the faint tapping of rain against the windows created a fragile cocoon. Then, with the kind of courage I didn't know I had, I leaned closer. She met me halfway, not with a kiss on my lips, but a soft kiss on my forehead. It was so tender, so unexpectedly gentle, that I felt something inside me break. She filled the cracks my boyfriend left behind, I thought. Another night, we left the office together just as the sky opened with rain. I hadn't brought an umbrella, but she had. Without hesitation, she pulled me beneath it, close against her side. I laughed nervously, raindrops still catching in my hair. She turned to me, her face only inches away, and kissed my cheek. The touch was light, but it lingered, warm against the chill of the storm. I pressed closer to her, letting her shield me not just from the rain, but from the world. It was during a weekend that I finally let myself step fully into what was happening between us. She invited me to a hotel lounge, not for work, but just to spend time together away from prying eyes. The room was softly lit, filled with the muted murmur of distant conversations and the scent of coffee and wine. We sat across from each other at first, talking quietly, but soon she moved beside me, her hand brushing mine with deliberate tenderness. I looked at her, really looked, and for once didn't fight the pull inside me. She lifted her hand to my face, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear, and the world seemed to still. I closed my eyes as she leaned in, and this time when her lips met mine, the kiss was not fleeting. It lingered, warm and patient, as if she was asking me to believe in her, in us. I kissed her back. It wasn't desperate or hungry. It was gentle, careful, and unbearably sweet. Her hand rested lightly on my jaw, steadying me as though she knew I was still trembling inside. When we pulled apart, I kept my eyes closed a moment longer, afraid to lose the fragile peace that had settled over me. When I finally opened them, she was watching me with a softness I had never seen in anyone's eyes before. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel broken. I felt wanted, cherished. Day by day, moment by moment, I realized I was rediscovering something I thought I had lost forever. Love that didn't cut, care that didn't betray. And though the world outside might never understand, inside that fragile cocoon we had woven, I began to hope again. It was an ordinary Thursday when the first shadow fell. The office buzzed with its usual rhythm, phones ringing, papers shuffling, conversations echoing off the glass walls. I was immersed in my own tasks when I heard a familiar voice outside my door. My heart jolted. It was my elder sister. I hadn't expected her. Hadn't even known she was in the area. She stepped inside, smiling brightly, holding a small bag as if she had dropped by just to surprise me. Behind her, my boss appeared, her usual calm expression suddenly stiff, almost uneasy. "Alex," my sister said warmly, walking over to hug me. "I was nearby and thought I'd see you." I smiled, though I was still processing. "That's a surprise. You never visit me at work." My boss lingered near the doorway, clearing her throat. "Ah, so this is your sister?" she asked, her tone oddly formal. I nodded, gesturing between them. "Yes, this is her. And this is my boss." They exchanged polite greetings, but something about the way their eyes met made me pause. It was fleeting, just a flicker, but there was a tension there, like two people trying not to reveal too much. I told myself I was imagining things, brushed the unease aside. After all, why would there be anything strange? Days passed, and I tried to ignore the odd feeling that lingered after that encounter. But then came the afternoon that shattered everything. My boss had invited me to lunch at a hotel, something we had done before. I arrived early, only to find the restaurant bustling with noise. She wasn't there yet, so I decided to wait. As I wandered toward the lounge area, I caught a burst of laughter, a laugh I knew instantly. My sister's. Curiosity tugged at me, and I moved quietly, my heels sinking into the carpet. I peeked around the corner, and what I saw rooted me to the spot. There they were. My sister and my boss, seated close together at a table tucked away in the corner. My boss leaned forward, her hand resting on my sister's. Her face lit up in a way I had once thought was only for me. My sister's cheeks were flushed with laughter, her eyes soft with affection. I stood frozen, unable to breathe, as their voices floated across the space between us. "When we're married, I'll make sure you never feel alone again," my boss whispered, her words carrying like knives straight into my chest. My sister laughed again, squeezing her hand. "I believe you. I know you'll keep your promises." And then, as though to seal it, my boss leaned in and kissed her. Not on the cheek, not fleeting, but a tender, deliberate kiss, the kind she had given me in that hotel lounge just days ago. My vision blurred with tears as I pressed myself against the wall, hidden from their view. My hands trembled violently, my body cold despite the warmth of the room. I felt the kiss on my lips from before, the whispered assurances she had given me. "We'll go at your pace, you're safe with me," all crashing into shards that cut deeper with every heartbeat. The loyalty I believed in was just another illusion. I wanted to scream, to walk over and confront them, to demand answers. But my legs refused to move. Instead, I stood there in silence, listening to the sound of their laughter, their whispered promises of forever, while my own chest ached with the weight of betrayal. Every tender moment replayed in my mind. The umbrella in the rain, the coffee left at my desk, the kiss on my forehead. I had thought they were signs of love, signs of devotion. But here they were, given to someone else as easily as they had been given to me. My sister of all people. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrelenting, but I didn't dare make a sound. The world blurred before me, their voices weaving through the haze like a cruel lullaby. I realized in that moment that I had been nothing more than a chapter in her story, disposable and temporary. And yet, the cruelest part was how my body still ached for her touch, how my heart still wanted to believe she had meant those moments with me. That contradiction tore at me, leaving me hollow and broken. When I finally stumbled out of the hotel, the sunlight hit my face like a mockery. I pressed my hand to my mouth, trying to stifle the sobs that clawed their way out. To everyone else, the day was just another day. But for me, it was the end of whatever fragile hope I had rebuilt. The world had shown me its truth again. Promises were fragile, loyalty was rare, and love was nothing more than a cruel game I was destined to lose. That night after the hotel, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with the lights off, the ceiling above me fading in and out of view as tears blurred everything. My pillow was damp before the hours even reached midnight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. Her hand on my sister's, her lips pressed against hers with the same tenderness she had once given me. Sleep mocked me. When it came, it was shallow, filled with dreams where she whispered promises into my ear, only for the voice to morph into my sister's laughter. I would wake with my heart pounding, my chest aching, and the room spinning with shadows that refused to let me rest. I tried to bury myself in work the next day, but every word on the page blurred, every number slipped through my vision. The office walls that had once been our cocoon now felt like they were crushing me. Her presence in the building was unbearable. When she passed by, smiling in that warm, steady way, I forced myself to look away, terrified she would see the betrayal already etched in my eyes. At home, I curled up on the floor of my apartment, hugging my knees, whispering questions to the silence. Was I just a passing desire? Was I never enough? The words echoed back at me, cruel in their honesty. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe, until I felt as though I was dissolving from the inside. Every memory became a blade. The way she brushed my hair back from my face. The soft kiss on my forehead in the quiet office. The warmth of her hand as she led me under the umbrella. Each one returned with sharper edges now, cutting deeper than they had ever soothed. I wanted to hate her, to erase her touch from my skin, but my body betrayed me. It still longed for her warmth, still remembered the security I had felt in her presence. That longing was worse than the betrayal itself, because it reminded me of how weak I truly was. 3 days passed like this. Restless nights, silent tears, the weight of a secret tearing me apart. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore. I had to face her. It was late in the evening when I went to her office. The building was nearly empty, the hum of the city muffled by thick windows. She looked up when I stepped inside, her face lighting with that familiar smile that once made me feel safe. "Alex," she said softly. "I was just about to call you. I've missed." "Stop." My voice cracked, fragile, but it silenced her. I closed the door behind me, my hands trembling. "I know." Her smile faltered. "Know what?" I swallowed hard, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I saw you." "The hotel." "With her." The color drained from her face, and for a moment she said nothing. Then she stood slowly, her hands trembling at her sides. "Alex, I can explain." I laughed, though it came out broken, bitter. "Explain what?" "That the promises you whispered to me were the same ones you whispered to my sister. That the kisses you gave me meant nothing, because you were giving them to her too." Her eyes filled with something like pain, but it only fueled the storm inside me. "I loved you," she said desperately. "I still love you. But your sister. She came into my life too and—" "Stop," I snapped, tears burning my eyes. "Don't you dare use the word love. Love doesn't divide itself between two people like this. Love doesn't play us against each other." She stepped closer, reaching out as if to take my hand, but I pulled away. The touch I once craved now felt like fire. "Alex, please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could. I thought maybe both of you." "Both." The word tore from me like a scream. "You thought you could love both of us? Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To us?" Her face crumpled, but I couldn't let myself soften. My tears fell freely now, dripping onto the carpet, soaking into my sleeves as I wiped at them uselessly. "I believed you," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "After everything with him, after all the pain, I let myself believe you were different. That you were loyal. And now—" My voice broke entirely. "Now I see you were just the same. Maybe worse." She tried again to reach me, but I stepped back, my body shaking. "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't touch me. Don't speak to me like you still have the right." The silence that followed was unbearable. She looked at me with eyes full of regret, but regret couldn't rebuild the ruins she had left me in. Finally I turned toward the door. "This is over," I whispered, though the words felt like shards in my throat. "Whatever we were, it never meant what I thought it did. And it never will." As I walked out, I heard her call my name, broken and raw, but I didn't look back. Couldn't. If I did, I might have crumbled all over again. That night, back in my apartment, I curled onto the bed, the silence around me deafening. I had lost again, first him, now her. It felt like the world had played the cruelest trick on me, dangling love in front of me only to snatch it away when I reached for it. I pressed my face into the pillow, my tears soaking through, and whispered to the dark, "I don't think I can believe in love anymore." And in that moment I meant it. Days turned into weeks, but the ache in my chest refused to loosen its grip. I had thought time would dull the edges, that eventually the memories of her hands, her voice, her lips would blur into something I could manage. But pain has its own rhythm, its own stubborn way of returning just when you think you've outrun it. I used to believe betrayal was a man's cruelty, that my ex-boyfriend's lies were wounds only men could inflict. But now I knew better, or worse. Men had betrayed me, women had betrayed me. Maybe it wasn't about gender at all. Maybe it was love itself that was the fraud. Every promise I had ever received felt rehearsed in hindsight. "I'll never leave you. You're the only one. You're safe with me." Words meant to soothe, but never meant to last. My mistake was not in falling, it was in believing those words could hold weight. Some nights, I sat awake replaying it all. The way I had leaned into her kindness at work, the way I had convinced myself she was different. I saw now that I had confused persistence with loyalty, charm with devotion. I had wanted so desperately to be chosen, to be loved purely, that I ignored the cracks in her story from the very beginning. It was easier to pretend she was steady, that her heart belonged fully to me. But deep down, hadn't I sensed her restlessness? The way her eyes sometimes drifted, the pauses between her confessions. I hadn't wanted to face it. I had built my hope on unstable ground, and when the truth came crashing down, it buried me along with it. One evening, unable to breathe inside my apartment, I walked to the same hotel where it had all begun. The lobby hadn't changed. Golden light spilled over polished floors, the faint scent of roses drifted from vases on the tables, and couples filled the lounge with hushed laughter and clinking glasses. It was exactly as it had been the night she leaned across and kissed me for the first time. I sank into the same corner seat, my heart folding in on itself. Around me, pairs leaned close, whispering secrets into each other's ears, their eyes shining with devotion I could no longer trust. I wanted to shake them, to warn them that love is not what it promises to be, that one day those eyes might look away, those whispers might belong to someone else. Instead, I just sat in silence, watching, letting their happiness echo against the hollowness inside me. A waiter passed by and asked if I was waiting for someone. I smiled faintly and shook my head. Just me. He nodded politely, leaving me with a glass of water I hadn't ordered. I stared at the ripples on its surface, remembering the way her hand once reached across the same table to cover mine. My fingers twitched with the ghost of her touch, and I pulled them back into my lap, ashamed of how much my body still betrayed me. I thought about all the versions of myself I had been. The hopeful girl who believed her boyfriend when he said forever. The fragile woman who let another's persistence wear down her fear. The lover who surrendered to soft kisses and thought they meant everything. Each version felt like a stranger to me now. All that was left was this. A woman who had learned too late that loyalty was not something you could beg for, not something you could trade kisses for. It was either there, solid and unwavering, or it wasn't. And in my life it never had been. The laughter around me grew louder, and I realized I no longer envied it. It wasn't real to me anymore, not in the way it once was. Love had revealed itself as a fragile performance, a stage that eventually crumbled when the curtain fell. I finished the water, stood slowly, and looked around one last time. The hotel was beautiful, the air filled with warmth and romance, but none of it belonged to me. Never had. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, the city stretched before me, alive with lights and movement. Couples walked hand in hand down the sidewalks, their faces glowing with hope. I didn't resent them anymore. I simply knew I was not one of them. I walked alone, but with a strange clarity settling in my chest. Not peace, not healing, just clarity. I might fall again one day, or maybe I never would. But I knew now what mattered most. In the end, love wasn't about gender. It was about loyalty. And that, I learned, was the rarest thing of all.